Hi everyone and welcome back to LL Sports TV. Hope you're all doing well. To be more specific though, welcome to episode 25, I believe, of the show Keep It in the Family. I'm your host Laurie. Joining me on the show today is my lovely niece Kenya's in the building. We've just actually come back from the women's Champions League trophy lift, and that was an amazing occasion. Yeah, the turnout was really good, Kenya.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic. So it was really good. Big up to the girls, done the club proud. But yeah, and we're here to talk about Arsenal because the final game of the season took place yesterday. Arsenal beating Southampton as expected away from home, 2-1. Wasn't a great game, but we did win it. Confirmed our second place behind this year's champions Liverpool. In the final analysis, we finished second, played 38, won 20, drawn 14, lost 4. Newcastle beat us a couple of times, West Ham and Bournemouth. It was Arsenal's third consecutive second place finish. In other competitions, in the Champions League, we finished, well, when I say we finished, we got to the semi-finals before we were knocked out by PSG in the FA Cup. Disappointing third round, knocked out by Man United on penalties. Carabao Cup, got to the semi-finals, knocked out by Newcastle. So in essence, Kenya, that was the season. Yep. So over to you. Now it's time to reflect. In a few words, give us your assessment of this Arsenal's 24-25 season.
Painful. That's what I would say. Started off quite bright in the sense that we had a really hard run at the beginning, and we fared quite well. And then I think, we just let ourselves down. A lot of red cards. Some that I think weren't red cards, to be honest. I think not even just red cards, things like penalties. For example, I don't think we were given one penalty at home this season in the league. That's crazy to think about.
I didn't know that. If that's true,
yeah.
Then that is...
And, I just think a lot of decisions were just, in general, disgraceful, if I'm being honest. And
when you say decisions, whose decisions?
Refereeing decisions.
Oh, right. Okay,
so
okay.
That Brighton one, Declan Rice, to this day, I still don't understand that. Trossard, Man City, where we were just cruising the game, getting, I still don't understand why that was done. Miles Lewis Skelly, Wolves, all of these things, most of those things cost us points, cost us wins.
But do you not think that the players have to take some responsibility? I mean, I know the Declan Rice one was harsh, but if we are being true to the spirit of the law, then he did actually prevent a restart.
He got kicked in the leg. What's frustrating to me is, okay, if we're going by that, to me, I don't think it's very clear and obvious that he kicked that ball that day, if I'm being honest.
He did kind of manoeuvre it out.
But then we saw João Pedro literally boot the ball from the halfway line all the way out, all the way to the other end, to the clock end. He didn't even receive a card for that.
The Trossard one,
City, the Trossard one, I don't even understand that. I don't even understand why that was done. I can't. The Miles Lewis Skelly one at Wolves, I don't understand that. The William Saliba one, okay, maybe you can argue that one.
I was at that game, and I must admit, I thought that he was going to go. As soon as he did that,
I was like, okay, yeah, fair enough. Miles' one against West Ham, okay, fair enough. I forgot there's another one. Mikel Merino's one, okay. But
that was definitely.
But then I think about penalty away against Brighton. We've never seen that ever again. These are decisions that I just can't ignore. And then I also just felt like things like injuries, the way we approach games, tactics, style of play, all of it was really bad. And I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I can't just say it's referees. I also have to say style of play, tactics, the way we approach games. All of those things were quite bad.
Well, we did finish 10 points behind Liverpool. That's quite significant, really. Yeah. So that would indicate that. And you have to bear in mind as well that the season was over 3-4 weeks ago. Yeah. And in January, Liverpool have kind of coasted. Yeah. So although we finished 10 points behind Liverpool, which is, let's face it, quite a significant gap, even within that, we have to say that Liverpool they're on the beach last year. I mean, I don't think they won any of their last 4 games.
Yeah,
they won 2 and drew 2. So I guess what I'm saying is, even though it's second, it was a long way behind Liverpool. Yeah. Let's not kid ourselves about that.
We got dragged into a top 5 race at one point. We were saying you have to win this game, otherwise on the last day, you could miss out on Champions League. That's crazy to even think about, that we were even in that situation. And I just think it's been a really disappointing season for Arsenal fans. I think going into this season, we saw how well we did last season, and we were 2 points short in the league, and we followed it up with just a really bad, it's not a title charge, but just a bad league campaign, and we massively regressed, in my opinion.
Massively, right?
Yeah. I can't...
Well, it's interesting because the manager did use that word regression. He said we'd regressed. Maybe not in the same context as you, but yeah, we have regressed. There's no doubt about that. I mean, the saving grace this season was the Champions League. We got to the semi-final. Obviously, we had that great win over Real Madrid, which, got the fans excited. But then, we went out in the next round
what
to
did
PSG.
we do next round?
The 2 domestic cups, very disappointing. In particular, the FA Cup.
Yeah.
I mean, I was at that game.
Yeah, so was I.
Went out to a 10-man Man United team on penalties, and that was a Man United team that's, let's face it, they've been poor all season.
Yeah.
We were at home. We absolutely should have won that game.
Yeah, we should have buried them about 3 or 4 in that game.
The Newcastle exit Carabao Cup, they beat us pretty much, if not comfortably.
Yeah, they did.
Well-deserved winners in that competition over us. So that was disappointing. So it was a disappointing season, man. I mean, the season promised so much.
It's one to forget, if I'm being honest. It's one that, like, after I went to Southampton, and I was just like, I'm actually happy the season's done. Like, last season, although we didn't win anything, it was like, I wish there was more football because of how well we played and what we had done. This season, I'm like, I'm actually happy to have a break from football at the moment because of just how poor this whole campaign has been for me personally and what I expected the team to do. It was very lackluster. That's probably the word I'd use to describe the season.
Yeah, there was a palpable sense of disappointment at the way the season turned out. Just thinking, in terms of rating your assessment of the season on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, obviously, 10 being the highest, what would you place Arsenal as?
I remember me and the AFTV production guys arguing about this because I said I'd rate it like a 3. And they were
3?
And they were saying that's really low, and I was like, it's based on my expectations. It's based on what we should have.
You sounding like Turkish. I think he called it a 3 as well.
It's based on what we should have done, and my thing going into this season is you must win something, and they didn't win something. In fact, they didn't really, other than the Champions League, they didn't come close to winning anything. You failed in the FA Cup miserably. I went to almost every FA Cup game, miserably failed. Carabao Cup, miserably failed. In fact, you went out in those 2 competitions in 1 week. Then in the league, we didn't even spend 1 day top the whole season. Nottingham Forest, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, all those teams around us, they actually spent at least a day or more top of the league. We didn't spend a single day top of the league. Like, my expectations going into the season, you're going to win it. We're hearing from last season from our manager, we're going on to do something massive, stay with us, back us. I'm like, cool, you've shown me enough last season, I'm going to support you. Didn't show me really anything in the league, didn't show me any ambition in the league. We got to January, a pit stop where we could have tried to save ourselves and save the season and actually go on to try and win it. We did nothing. Like, it was just to me, it was all around failure. The only thing that's a saving grace is the Champions League. Got to the semi-final, and I still felt like, that's really good considering that we've been out of the competition for a long time, and, who we beat, the teams that we had to play, how well we looked. I think we were one of the best teams in the competition. It was disappointing, but it goes to show that we have the potential to win that. But again, I looked at those games and I was like, this is where we've let ourselves down in the last 2 windows, where we didn't try to get somebody in knowing that we lacked firepower. We didn't set ourselves up right. And then as well, things like, look at our game against Southampton. That's the bottom of the league. Like, look at Raheem Sterling. That's the guy we brought in to add squad depth. He was terrible. So I can probably maybe think of like 5 fixtures where I'm like, yes, that was amazing, but I cannot think of anything else great. That's why my rating's so low.
Positives. I mean, like you said, the Champions League run was obviously a positive because I actually predicted at the start of the season, I did it on AFTV. I said I thought we'd get to the semi-finals. I think our football is actually more suited to European football than it is to the Premier League, funny enough. I think we found it difficult to overcome teams that deploy low block, and a lot of teams that we played in the Premier League have done that, and we found it difficult. And listen, it goes without saying where our weaknesses lie. We need a striker. It's interesting. Not one Arsenal player this season got into double figures in terms of scoring.
That's the first time in 100 years or so.
Yeah,
Like
I
that's
saw
why
that
that's why I
stat.
say to people, how do you want me to rank the season? If at first time in 100 years, not one player scored more than 10 goals in the league. That's,
I mean, to be fair, Havertz looked like he was gonna make
Yeah.
that until he got injured.
But-
But even so, the stat remains. I think there is
a
one
dark-
positive that I can take out of this season. That
the youngsters maybe.
yeah, the youngsters. I was going to touch on that. Miles Lewis-Skelly, Ethan Wanieri. I think Kivior's positive. He
Yeah.
came in and did a good job when there were people like myself doubting whether he could do that. So big ups to him. Big ups to Miles Lewis-Skelly, who's been outstanding. Ethan Wanieri, I thought he was really good. To me, didn't get anywhere near enough minutes that he should have got. I think another positive I would say is our defensive record. I think if you look at our defensive record, I think we conceded something like 34 goals, which is the lowest in the Premier League. So defensively, we're still there. And when you
Solid.
consider as well that many people thought that Saliba probably wasn't at his best this season for whatever reason, that is still a really good sign that we've only conceded that least amount of goals when you consider also the injuries to Tomiyasu, Ben White and people like that. So I think that's a positive. So I think, listen, I don't think we're too far from winning something, but obviously recruitment is going to be a major issue. I think another positive is the coming into the club of Andrea Berta. He comes with a big reputation.
I like what I see so far. And
so
he's been very proactive and, looking around.
by all accounts.
Yeah.
So there have been some positives, but, I would agree with you that the season has largely been disappointing. Although I think you're being a bit harsh, I've got to admit. With a 3, you're sounding like Turkish, because I think that's what, when I asked him yesterday on AFTV, that's what he said, 3.
Big up Turkish.
I think James said 3.5. So a lot of people...
to me...
A lot of people are expressing that view.
5 is average, and I don't think this is an average. Based on what my expectations were, this wasn't an average season. This was a very below average season, and I based that on how we played. I based that on how we fared in all of our competitions. I based that on tactics, etc., results, all around. And when I look at all around, if I can only really point out maybe 5 or 6 positives, and I can point out more negatives, to me, it's not. Like, I don't leave this season feeling very confident in how we're going to play next season. I actually feel quite worried, if I'm being honest. There's a lot at stake now. Whereas last season, although we didn't win anything, I came out of that season feeling confident that, you know what, they're going to get it right. They're going to go into the next season and progress. Although that didn't happen, the rating was different because we had that feeling. Whereas, like even how we played against Southampton. Like, why are you 1-1 with Southampton until the last minutes of a game? Like, things like that, those are my worries. That's why I can't personally rate this season anything higher than a 5.
You've gone up to 5 now?
No.
Because I was going to say 6. Because, at the end of the day, let's look at it. Look, I know there is the weight of expectation. So we came into this season, we'd finished twice runners-up. So we're thinking, listen, if City drop off, because a lot of people thinking City could possibly drop off this season, we'll be there to capitalise. And I think that's where much of the disappointment comes from, because City did indeed drop off. Yeah. Unfortunately, we weren't there to capitalise. Liverpool did. Fair play to them. They deserved to be champions. We fell away. For me, the title ended... I remember it well, Saturday, February the 22nd, losing at home to West Ham. A West Ham team, by the way, at that time were not very good.
They hadn't won a game in like 6 games.
And they come to the Emirates and beat us at a time, and if we'd have beaten them, we would have been almost neck and neck with Liverpool. So that was really poor. That kind of ended, really, to all intents and purposes, our Premier League aspirations. But, at the end of the day, I guess the way you've got to look at it is this sometimes. So if a club finishes second and gets to the semi-final of the Champions League, I'm not so sure whether you can say that was a poor season, if you see what I mean.
I see what you're saying. And I think that's fair. But I just can't ignore the other stuff. I can't ignore FA Cup. I can't ignore Carabao Cup. And we're at a stage where you can't turn your nose up at those competitions either, because the reality is the FA Cup, I'm not saying that we want to be in that competition, but it gets you into Europa. The Carabao Cup they both get you into some type of European competition, and it's a trophy. It's silverware. That's to me, football is about winning things. It's about winning trophies. In 10 years' time, when somebody asks me what happened in 24-25, I'll have nothing to tell them other than one good moment against Real Madrid. Do you know what I mean?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
And you got to be honest with me. Yeah? Is your views of the season somewhat skewed by the fact that lot down the road?
No, it's not actually. I said all this before they even won it. My views on our club doesn't change based on whether rivals win or not. My thing was that if they hadn't won or not, it's still a bad season for me. It doesn't impact how I feel. It's annoying, of course. You never want your rivals to win anything, but it almost seemed inevitable with the competition that they had to face. But I just think all around we were poor.
Do you think that do you think that Spurs winning that trophy kind of exacerbated the feelings of disappointment?
I think for most people, yeah.
Because I've got to admit, it did for me.
Yeah, I think for me personally, everything I'm saying now, I've said week in, week out on here, on AFTV. I've said it on my own platforms. I've been very consistent in how I felt, and I felt like we've underperformed massively. That's how I've been very consistent in that. And, I've given praise where necessary, but, I think for a lot of fans, the fact that our rivals have won something, considering how terrible they have been, it is a bit of a punch in the gut, considering that obviously we've been better than them, although to our standards we've not been good enough, but we've been much better, and we still kind of left empty-handed. So,
okay, you're talking about praise. Let's try and end with some positivity, shall we? If I was to ask you your Arsenal player of the season, who would that be?
It's easy for me, Gabriel Magalhaes. I think what this guy's done, to me, he's one of the best centre-backs in the world. I don't even care what anyone says. He could start for any team, and what he does, he scores. The way he defends, the way he commands that back line is just next to none. I think he's every season he's stepped up, and I honestly cannot think of a game this season, even when we lost to Newcastle, etc. He's one of the only players where I looked at you actually played well. Everyone else let you down. Think about
honourable mentions.
Think about FA Cup. When we lost to Man United, he pops up with a goal. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But honourable mentions, Raya, Timber, Declan Rice, who else? They're my honourable mentions, to be honest.
I must admit, I went for... Listen, I hear what you're saying.
I guess you can add
Gabriel.
Thomas Partey in as well.
Yeah, I went for... Yeah, I mean, I had a short list of...
Miles Lewis-Skelly, I forgot about him, sorry.
David Raya, Miles Lewis-Skelly, Thomas Partey, Declan Rice, Gabriel Magalhaes and Jurriën Timber.
Yeah.
I think those are my honourable mentions, but my player of the season this season, I would have gone for David Raya. I think he's played fantastic. All the games. He's been consistent. There's been games when he saved us. And he can be erratic at times. Sometimes he's a study in itself. Sometimes he'll make a rash decision. You think, "Bro, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
And then the very next play, he'll make an outstanding save that either keeps Arsenal in the game or has saved us. So.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, he's come on leaps and bounds. I remember when he first took over from Ramsdale.
Yeah, he looked a bit shaky and he needed time to acclimatise.
There was a lot of doubters, and so he's pretty
shut
much
us up.
won every...
Yeah.
And one of the things I've noticed about David Raya is his agility. He's one of the most agile keepers in the Premier League.
The way he just gets up after the double, triple saves he's done in the league and the Champions League, you can't ignore that. He's been one of the best keepers around.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Sometimes you can watch him within a game.
Yeah.
He's really good to watch.
He's fantastic.
Miles Lewis-Skelly has emerged as, the emerging talent.
Yeah.
Him and Ethan Nwaneri. Obviously, Miles Lewis-Skelly's played more games, represented England, scored on his debut. He's had a fantastic season. So he's been a really bright spot. But there's in a frustrating season like the one we've had, Miles Lewis-Skelly has emerged as one of the shining lights without a doubt. Declan Rice as well. I mean, didn't start the season great, but he's finished the season so strong. So,
exactly. I think the funny telltale sign of that is when you're saying almost everyone there is a defender or
a non-attacker.
Yeah, a non-attacker essentially. I think that kind of sums up the season a bit, really. But
I'm not gonna go into the whys and wherefores of, what we need, because we all know what we need.
We all know.
And that's attacking players, in particular a striker. I mean, at this moment, at the point where this film this show has been filmed. We're being linked with Gyökeres, but there's also talk of Sesko. For me, out of those two, it's got to be Gyökeres.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Listen, Sesko, I'm sure he's a very good player. He's got 13 goals in the Bundesliga for Leipzig. But if you look at Gyökeres' scoring record, it's off the charts.
Yeah.
And we need a proven goal scorer. I think Sesko, you're looking at potential. With Gyökeres, you get the ready-made product.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
what we need. We can't have another season like this season. We need to win something. And in order to win something, we've got to turn those 14 draws that we had in the Premiership into wins. And the way you do that is to outscore the opposition. Exactly. And to outscore the opposition, you need your strikers to score goals.
Yeah.
Kenya touched on it very eloquently. The fact that not one Arsenal player this season got into double figures, to me, that tells its own story. Yeah. So there you go.
Yeah.
That's the season. Kenya's giving it a 3. I'm a little bit more generous. I've given it a 6. But listen, what do you guys think? I'd be very interested to hear what you guys think. Please put it in the comments. Love to know what you guys think. Kenya, it's been a pleasure working with you on LL Sports TV. Even though the season's over, we will be doing more shows weekly. Always plenty to talk about, especially when it comes to Arsenal. They are called the gift that keeps giving.
Exactly.
And we will be talking about football week in, week out. So, people, thanks so much for supporting the channel. Really do appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, please like, share and subscribe. We are out. Catch you on the next one.